Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Noeleen Hammond Jones, and I'm going to be talking you through today the webinar on interview techniques. I'm going to give about 2 or 3 minutes just to allow for people to join the webinar, and then we will begin. Just a reminder that we will be starting in about 1 minute's time, just to allow people to join the webinar. Okay, thank you for joining me today. Today's webinar is going to be on interview techniques. If you have any questions during the session, please post them in the questions area. So first of all, sometimes when we get that phone call or that email, it may make you feel like this, what do they want from me? It can make you feel a little bit uncertain and quite nervous when somebody does invite you for interview for a job that you may or may not really want. You may have applied for the role for some experience, but generally it can make you feel quite nervous. What we're going to cover today is around preparation for interview, look at the different types of interview and selection processes so you can become familiar with what employers use. We'll touch a little bit about body language and how important body language is during an interview. We'll look at some interview questions and then some tips. So again, if you do have any questions whatsoever, just put them in the questions area. Okay, so it's quite simple in terms of what are can do the job. So you have the skills and the knowledge to do the job. Someone who wants to do the job, so that's around motivation and passion, wanting to work for the organization, as well as someone who will fit in, who will be a good fit with the team. We spend sometimes more hours at work with our colleagues than we do with our own families, so it can be quite important that you fit well into a team when you're spending 8, 9, 10 hours a day with these people. So they do like to hire people who come across well, who come across personable. People hire people they like. Recruitment and selection. A good way of researching the company that you're applying to is looking on Google. Obviously, Google the company. Are they doing anything innovative? Have there been any news articles around them recently? Have they launched a new product? Have they entered a new market? What's going on with that organization? Also look at glassdoor.co.uk, or if you're overseas.com, or Vault. These are two really good resources that can give you some insider information. So you'll find that prior employees will post on there reviews of the company, so it'll give you a really honest idea of what the companies like to work for, as well as the company website. Obviously that will give you the About Us section, some stats maybe about the organization, where they operate in the world, how many staff they have, how long they've been operating for. LinkedIn and social media can be really good as well, because sometimes these companies have dedicated social media channels that they use to highlight new developments, or just to highlight career opportunities. And alumni, you know, through the university you can use My Network, which is the alumni tool, which if you study at the University of Manchester you can access as a student, and that gives you access to alumni all over the world in various different companies, various different sectors, who again can give you an insight into what the organisation is like. And then there's the role. So if you have applied for a job, always copy and paste the job description into a Word document and save it. Once the job has closed, so the closing date has arrived, that role will disappear from the internet. And then you'll get an invitation for interview, and it will say your interview will be based on the job description, which you do not have because you didn't copy and paste it into a Word document. So if you do apply for a job, always copy and paste the job description and any additional documentation like person specification into a Word document and save it in a folder. It's really useful to have when you're actually interviewing for the job, because it can help you to remember exactly what skills, values, interests they're looking for. If you want to know more about the interview process, Glassdoor again is really good, as well as who've applied for jobs at these companies do also put up reviews of the interview session, and that includes good tips for interview as well as some of the questions that they were asked, and it can vary in terms of what roles they've applied for. You may not find the exact role that you're applying for on there, but it can be a really good source of information to get an idea of the types of questions the organization tend to ask. And then obviously you know, you have your CV and you've applied the application form. These are things to read over because they will refer back to these in your interview. So familiarize yourself with your CV and your application form in case they go, you stated such and such on your application form. What did you mean by this? And the last thing you want is to be caught out in an interview and think, I don't remember writing that. So do familiarize yourself with your application. Also be able to articulate clearly to an employer your achievements, your strengths and weaknesses, career goals. You know, these are all very important. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And if you're not sure of these things, or you're a bit, you know, unsure where to start, do come in and have a conversation with us here at the Career Service, because we can help you to develop your story around your career goals. We can help you to identify strengths and weaknesses, and also how to communicate them effectively to employers. And CAR stories. I'll go through CAR a little bit later. If you've heard of STAR, it's exactly the same, although I prefer CAR because it's shorter. But CAR is, you know, given your context, your action and your result, and employers want to see this, as well as your motivate. You know, what motivates you, what gets you going during the day, what gets you out of bed, you know, why have you applied for this job? What are your motivators in that? And again, it can be really important to identify these. So moving on, your presentation statement. So this is around your pitch and your career or experience overview. So if you are at University of Manchester and you've worked before in a career, so you've maybe worked for several years in an organisation, have come back to do additional qualifications, or you've worked in part-time jobs, or you've done some experience in volunteering and internships, this can be really important to help you to present yourself well. So what is a pitch? A pitch is a very short statement that defines how, you know, who you are and who you want to be, and how you want to be seen by these employers. And this is really important for the question of, tell me a little bit about yourself. And it's a question that really only you can answer because only you know who you are. But people really struggle with this, and it's something that they can find really difficult. Now, I have here less than 30 seconds, but a minute is fine to be able to talk about yourself. And how you can do that is understand, what I am, what am I studying, what do I want to be, and that also brings into itself, you know, what motivated you to do this course of study at the University of Manchester? Why the University of Manchester? So when I'm helping students answer this question, tell me a little bit about yourself, or give me a little bit of background on yourself. It's, why Manchester, why this course, and also what have I done and what can I do while you're here? This is really important. Are you involved in clubs, societies? Have you done any volunteering while you're here? Part-time jobs, summer work, internships? All of this is really important, and drawing from those experiences relevant skills, attributes that employers want to see. And that's where knowing your strengths is really important. Understanding, if you are somebody who excels at organization, it can be really good to be able to articulate that, again, communicate that to an employer. I'm very well organized. Well, let me give you an example, for instance. And that can be really helpful for an employer to know that you can talk about your experience effectively, as well as give examples. Examples are always really good for employers. They enjoy hearing around your experience, but also the examples of particular skills and using those particular skills, because it makes their job easier. They're not having to interpret what you're saying. If you're too vague with an employer there and they don't explore further with more questions, you may find that an interview will stop short or end very quickly. So it's worth always trying to give examples. I've given 3 different examples here. What am I? So I've gone down the mechanical engineering graduate with 1 year industrial placement experience and several months experience in a leadership role in my student society. Excellent example, and you can give a little bit more and expand. That's just a tiny sample of how you can start. Equally, I've participated in volunteering experience as well as maintained a part-time job in my local shop whilst I've been studying. Again, that's very short and it is vague because I'm only giving you examples on a slide. I would expect you to expand on your volunteering experience. How long have you been volunteering? What kind of projects have you worked on? What have you learned from these projects? And ideally around your strengths as well. So it's worth, developing this pitch, as I call it, so that when you're asked, tell me a bit about yourself, you can answer that confidently. Your career and experience overview is usually chronological. It's short, between 2 to 3 minutes. For each role that you've done, what did you do in terms of your responsibilities, what you've achieved, what you've learned. This could be your role in a student society, it could be your role in a club, it could be if you've taken on a role as a group leader within your course on an assignment. It can be any volunteering you do, working in the family business. There's lots of examples that you can give around this just to give yourself the opportunity to share with an employer, what you have to offer. This is around your value. So when I'm an employer and I'm interviewing you, I want to know what value are you bringing to my organization, and this helps you to break it down so that you can tell the employer, this is my experience, this is what I've done. Equally, this is what I've achieved, and this is what I'm going to bring to your organization. So the interview selection process, it varies from company to company. So the larger the organization, the more steps there are in getting to that final interview. The smaller the organization, the shorter that will be. And it can vary. So it's more common to be called when you apply for a job, to get that phone call from an employer to invite you for either a phone, Skype or video interview, which is usually quite a short interview, around half an hour, where they'll ask you a couple of questions. And that is really just to find out from you who you are, why you've applied for this job, and what your motivators are. So it's the first part of the screening process. The psychometric testing can happen online, and it's usually followed by some sort of feedback interview. It can be a questionnaire, it can be an online test, it can be a variety, it can be numerical, it can be situational judgment, it can be strengths-based, it can be lots of different tests depending on the sector you're applying to. That can then be followed by an assessment centre day, which can be a half day or a full day. This can include group exercises to see how well you work as part of a team. Case studies, especially for those of you who are going into consulting, case study are very, very common, just to see your train of thought, how you process problems, and that's what they're looking at, how you approach a problem, how you approach a situation. Sometimes there's presentations, you're required to do a presentation. That could also be part of the group exercise, where as a group you're given a task and then present back at the end of the task. Sometimes it's group interviews, more psychometric tests, just to make sure that your answers are the same as the ones you did online and you didn't get a friend to do it for you. So they can sometimes redo your psychometric tests. As well as networking lunch with employees or recent graduates. So sometimes they think it's a good idea to, especially if it's a whole day, to have a networking lunch where you will get to meet current employees and graduates who may be currently working there, who've just started, to give you some insight into what the organizations really like to work for. I always say with these networking lunches, even though they're not assessed, you're still being observed. So the worst thing you can do is sit in a corner on your phone or go outside and have a cigarette, because the last thing you want to do is be seen to be you know, not interested in engaging. This is such a fantastic opportunity to make a good impression with these people, because they're going to be working with you potentially. So again, they may be asked after the lunch, you know, what did you think of Joe Bloggs? Was he a good guy? Would you work with him? And if they go, well, actually, you know, he didn't bother talking to us. He sat in the corner on his phone all lunchtime, or he's stuck with his friend there in the corner and didn't really talk to us. It can reflect quite badly on you. So it's a great opportunity to ask questions about, you know, what's it like to work here? You know, what training opportunities are there? Are there lots of social activities? Those kinds of things, just to learn more. It's not your chance. It's not a chance for you to interview these people about the job, but it's a great chance for you to find out what is the culture of the company like. And then either in the assessment centre, you could have interviews at the end of the day with a partner, or you could be invited back on a separate day for interviews. And the interviews, depending again on the organisation, could be a panel interview with 3 people, or a senior partner interview with 1 person, where it's more of a conversation than a question and answer session. It can take the form of informal or friendly chat, or a very formal session. So be prepared, and that's where doing your research on Glassdoor can really help to give you an insight into other people's experiences of interviewing at these companies. Now, body language is really, really important, and while you're doing the assessment centre, where I said around the half day or full day, especially around the group exercises and case studies, you will be assessed the entire time. You will have a dedicated member of staff who will be monitoring you, your interactions, what you say, how you say it, your facial expressions, your body language, everything, because again, they want to make sure that you can work well as part of a team. If somebody in your group is being really annoying, which is quite common, you do tend to, at these assessment centres, get a very big personality who wants to take over. They will be looking at you to see how you cope with that, and the better you cope with it and the more pleasant you are and not rolling your eyes or getting really frustrated with these people, the better your chances are, because that person will not get through. If they're taking over, they won't get through, but you can still get through if you're being inclusive of, say, other members of the team who might be more intimidated or feel left out. So it's very important to be aware of your body language and make sure that you're not looking like you're getting upset with somebody or exacerbated with somebody. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. So your tone can be very important as well. So if you're going in there and you're really monotone and you're talking like this all the time and your voice isn't changing tone, people will lose the will to live. They will not engage with you. It'll show that you're not animated, and some people are naturally quite laid back. They're naturally quite subdued. I would say on the day, put your best foot forward and just get some energy into your tone. And if you're worried about this, if you're worried that, you know, I'm normally quite a quiet person and I don't know how I come across, come and see us again. We do mock interviews at the career service, and we can give you feedback on your tone of voice and your body language and help you prepare for interviews. So do come and see us and we can help you. These things can be worked on. But it is true, if your words say one thing and your body or tone say another, people will believe your body language over the words that are coming out of your mouth. I mean, let's just look at Trump as an example. You know, he has very recently, with the Japanese president was there, it was ridiculous. He sounded completely like he wanted to be somewhere else. He looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. But what he was saying was, you know, this was a great experience and da 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 da. But you can see from the look on his face and the tone of his voice that you can hear that he didn't want to be there. And that's what people are going to see with you. So you have to be really careful to make sure that what you're saying matches your body language. You know, be energized, be excited, be motivated. It's important to show the employer that you really want to work for them. There are different types of interview questions that you're going to get asked. They can fall into opening style questions, competency-based question, which most of you will be aware of, strengths-based questions, which is a new addition that's been around the last couple of years and is being used more commonly, especially with the big organizations like EY, motivational questions, commercial awareness, sometimes unusual questions to see how you handle stressful situations, and then we'll cover questions to ask the employer as well. So opening questions are very they're questions to put you at ease. They're just to get a feel for the kind of person you are. So that all-important question, tell me a little bit about yourself, that I spoke about earlier, you know, your pitch, being able to talk about your motivations, why this course, why Manchester, what you've done, how you've made the most of your time while you've been studying here, and how that's led to, you know, applying for a job in whichever sector it may be. Sometimes they may just want to, you know, really, if they see that you're a bit nervous or a bit uneasy or maybe a bit quiet, then they might ask you you know, an easier question around how was your journey, to put you at ease, to make you feel like it's more of a conversation. Or they may ask about your course or your interests, just to kind of get you motivated and excited. So again, you know, opening questions are to put you at ease, but also to find out a bit more about you. Competency-based questions are the ones that you are more familiar with. These are around the recruiter looking for, you know, the skills and knowledge that you use to perform well in certain situations. They are telling you what they want to hear. So they're basically saying, give me an example of, tell me about a time when you did something. Have you ever had to intervene in a conflict situation? You know, they're asking you to tell them a specific answer. So focus on the why and the how in your answer. If you were working in a group, make sure you focus on your contributions and not everyone else. They're not hiring we, they're hiring you. So if you answer a question, we did this, we did that, we did the other, they're like, well, what did you do? Because I'm not hiring the rest of your group, I'm hiring you. So it's really important to put together answers for your competency-based questions. So how you could potentially perform in the workplace is what the competency-based questions are about. So they're asking you quite direct questions where they're looking for a particular example of a situation where you led a task or you took a certain course of action. And they can be probing questions, and they're used to determine, you know, what actions did you take? What skills did you use during that particular time? What changes were created by those actions? You know, what did you accomplish as a result of taking those actions? And the effects of those actions on others and you, which could be the result. And that's where the CAR comes in. You know, give an example of a time you solved a problem in a creative way. Well, that could be, you know, the real question is, how do you approach solving problems? Do you think logically and respond calmly? Can you generate ideas? Are you flexible? Can you cope with challenge and change? So they're asking several things in that one question. Give an example of a time you solved a problem in a creative way. That could mean that there was a problem, but there were many obstacles. How did you overcome those obstacles? So you need to really listen carefully when they're asking you these questions. The right answer will be briefly outline the situation. So that's where the CAR comes in. So CAR is context, action, result. It's similar to STAR, situation, task, action, result. But sometimes it can be hard to determine what was the situation and what was the task. So instead of trying to figure that out, CAR is easier. So give context. Give me a brief overview of what was the context or outline of the situation. Then I want to know what were the actions that you took. What were your potential solutions? How did you approach this? And which one did you pick? How did you implement this solution to the problem? And then finally, the result. What was the outcome? Even if the outcome was a bad outcome, I want you to turn that on its head and make it a positive. So if the outcome was that the event had to, you were tasked with organizing an event as part of your society, the actions you took were to market the event, work with a team of 10 people, try to quantify your answers as well. Then you can talk about the result. You know, if the event had to be cancelled, what you learned from this situation was, bear with me a second. What you learned from this situation was that you may market it differently or use the societies in future to market your events, or maybe implement social media more in getting more people signed up to your event, or maybe using an online event system that allows people to sign up to your event with one click. So always turn it around to what did you learn? So the CAR model, as I said, is context, action, result. It's really important that you remember this. The context is set the scene, give an idea, give an overview of what the situation was, describe your specific actions, not everyone else's, and explain how you did it more than listing what you did. So instead of just saying, I did this, I did that, I did the other, you're talking about what you did, how you did it. You know, if you took the lead and decided to promote the event, how did you promote the event? Why did you choose certain channels to promote the event? Who did you talk to? Did you use anyone in your group who had really good marketing skills? So talk about how, and then the result. You know, try and quantify it, but also the impact. And then tell me, this is just another example, tell me about time you worked in a team that would not have been a success without you. I'm not going to read through the answer to this. This is something that you can take a screenshot of or a quick photo of if you want to. These slides will be available online on the Career Service website under the Get Advice section. All the past webinars and events and slides for sessions are always on there, so do have a look. And also this will be recorded and on the University Careers YouTube channel as well, so you'll be able to go back and view this. Strengths-based questions is a new one. A strength is a pre-existing capacity for a particular way of behaving, thinking or feeling that is authentic and energizing to the user and enables optimal functioning, development and performance. What this really means is if you have a strength in a particular area, it makes you energized, it makes you motivated, it gives you energy, you enjoy it. It's a strength because it's something you enjoy doing, it's something you look forward to doing. If it's a weakness, it's something that maybe drains you. You can be really good at something, but it still not be a strength as such because it makes you feel drained. So for instance, I'm really good at sales, but it drains me. I don't enjoy sales. I have the skills to do it, but I don't enjoy doing it. So a strength for me is more around relationship management and dealing with companies. I really enjoy that, but the sales side not so much. So it's understanding your own strengths. Interviewing for strengths it's a simple goal on the recruiter side is to find out a candidate's interest, and the reason they use strengths-based interviews because you can pretty much prepare for a competency-based interview. You can think of all the different, tell me about a time when you worked as part of a team, tell me about a time when something didn't go well, tell me about a time when you worked on a project and it didn't succeed. You can prepare your answers for that in advance. A strengths-based interview is harder to prepare for. So they really want the whole point of a strengths-based interview is to really find out who you are as a person, what you enjoy doing and what you'll do really well. So if you enjoy something, you're therefore more likely to perform better and be happier in your career and stay longer with the organization. So it enables the interviewee to focus on potential rather than experience. So it gives you an opportunity to focus on, you know, hypothetical situations rather than based on experience. So if you don't have a lot of experience, this can be really, really good for you. So strengths-based questions could look like, is change within an organization always a good thing? Sounds like a random question, and they do tend to sound a little bit random. So, you know, they're looking to see if you do well around change. Would you be happy to compromise the quality of your work in order to deliver something more quickly? Again, you know, it's time management, it's, you know, quality over quantity. What's important to you? What do you find a strength? What modules did you enjoy the most and least, and why? And tell me about something you're particularly proud of. These questions, instead of like in the competency-based question, they are asking you to give them a specific example. In the strengths-based question, they're looking at your body language. They're looking at, they're listening for the tone of your voice. So the more energized you sound, the more energetic your body is. So, you know, you might be moving your hands a lot more, smiling, your eyes might light up when you're talking about a particular situation. And the more examples you give, the better your chances are in getting through this type of interview. So they're not, if you just give one example and your tone is a bit even and you're a little bit subdued, that shows them that this maybe not is a strength area for you. So what they're looking for is what you get excited by. So the more excited you are, the better. Now I'm not talking go crazy, obviously keep it within you know, professional level, but you need to be, you know, quite excited tone, the happier you are, and the more examples. If you can give 2 or 3 examples of something, in terms of modules, give 2 or 3 modules that you really enjoyed and why you enjoyed each module and what was it about those modules that you enjoyed. That is much better than just saying one module, you know. So it's all around your energy. That's what they're looking for. Answer with enthusiasm and positivity and make connections. Offer examples to back up your answers. So draw from your own experience. That could be experience on your course, experience in a prior work environment that you were in, experience in your societies, in your clubs, from your halls of residence or your flatmates. And what are the values or strengths of the organization? This is really important because a lot of the strengths-based questions will be around the company's values, and a lot of the companies on their website will have their own values section. So they'll say something like integrity, responsibility, team working. If you understand their values and they will give definitions for their own values, then you can align your responses with their values. So do your research on the company. Motivation questions. So what does success mean to you? What does failure mean to you? What motivates you to achieve? So they're looking for motivators there. You know, is it job security? Is it work-life balance? Is, you know, what really motivates you? What gets you going? And what are your short-term and medium-term goals? Now, at graduate level, it's rare that you'll get asked a lot of these questions. These usually occur when you've maybe applying for a more senior role. But it is good to be aware that these could potentially show up. The one I would prepare for is, you know, where do you see yourself in 3 or 4 years? That's a fairly common one. And, you know, generally don't be too obscure, and don't lie too much either, because if you say, well, I can see myself in this job in 5 years time, they don't expect you to stay in that job, in that company for 5 years. People usually progress within a year or 2 years. So, you know, be honest, but try and keep it within the limits of the organization. Commercial awareness questions, and we touched on commercial awareness earlier, is around why do you want to work for us? What do you want to know about us? What do you think about our strategy? It's all doing all that research into the company's values, the organization, what they're working on, and what value can you bring to the role, and be honest, you know. Do your due diligence, and if you click apply and send that CV, or you send that application form, make sure you do your research, because you could get a phone call the same day and be asked some of these questions. So don't just sending off 30 applications in one day is never a good idea. It may feel good, it may feel great, but it's not necessarily a good way to apply for lots of jobs. So unusual questions. If you were a biscuit, what would you be? Now, I would be a hobnob personally. I like hobnobs. But they're basically looking to see how creative you can be and how you respond under pressure to bizarre situations. It can be generally for companies who are who may have high levels of stress, you know, might be high energy environments, so investment banking or consultancy, areas where you would be expected to think on your feet quite a bit, and they just want to know, they don't really want to know what kind of biscuit you want to be, but they just want to see how you respond, you know, because some people will just completely fall flat on this question, just be like, oh, I don't know what to answer. Be honest, have a bit of fun with it, you know, let your personality shine through, smile. Don't let questions like this get you bogged down or upset, you know. Answer with a smile. If you're not sure of the question, or you think you may have misheard the question, do ask them to repeat the question. And then questions to ask. It is important to ask questions. If you walk away from an interview when they said, do you have any questions for us, and you say no, it can demonstrate that you maybe aren't that motivated, that passionate. Whereas if you have a good question, it can really help to demonstrate to the company, you know, this is me demonstrating, I've done a bit of research, and, you know, they may not be able to answer the question, but it's good to ask a couple. You know, what's the culture like? What kind of person does well here? That's a nice one. What would my induction process look like if I were successful? Or, you know, how would Brexit affect the organization's prospects over the next 2 years? There's lots of different questions you can ask. There may be some more, if it's a more technical role, it could be a technical question, especially if there's a new platform being released, or, you know, just do your research, and 1 or 2 questions will come up that you will ask. Don't ask about the salary, don't ask about visas, don't ask about when will I hear, because they usually say we will be in touch within 3 to 4 days. So, you know, do have some good questions to ask. Other tips, I would always say when I have students come to me for mock interviews, it's great, and when they say, oh yeah, I've practiced in my head, I know what I'm going to say, and I ask them the question, when they have to speak out loud, they get very confused, and it may sound great in your head, your answers, but you need to practice them out loud. So get a friend or a flatmate who can help you with your interview, as well as using the career service. Get a good night's sleep before your interview. That's really important. Don't be up all night. It will show the next day. Arrive early and check your appearance. Dress for the job you want. Don't wear a dress or skirt that's too short. Don't wear trainers with a suit. Even if they're black, they're still trainers. You know, if you haven't got a pair of shoes, go to the shop and buy a cheap pair of black shoes, but, you know, get something that makes you look like you want the job, and you've tried. Do not have a cigarette before your interview. The best perfume or cologne will not cover the smell. And if you have an interviewer who may be pregnant and who can smell it really clearly, or an interviewer who's an ex-smoker, or, you know, just really doesn't like the smell, it can get you off to a bad start. So try and avoid that before your interview, and be pleasant as soon as you enter the building. You know, sometimes the receptionist gets asked, what did you think of that person? And if you've just sat there on your phone and you've not engaged, or you've been rude, or you've been short with somebody, oh, you know, they will feed that back. So always be pleasant to staff. It doesn't matter who, but as soon as you enter that building, be on your best behavior. You know, give us succinct answers. Try and turn a meeting into a conversation. And always ask questions. It just shows you're interested. You know, the more questions you ask, and I don't mean go mad, think about 3 good questions and thank the interviewers for their time and reiterate that you really want the job. Very few people do that. When they say, well, thank you for coming today, you can turn around and say, well, thank you. I really appreciate the time you've given up today to interview me. And I just wanted to tell you or reiterate to you that, you know, this is a great opportunity and I would love the opportunity to be considered for this role, you know, and that just shows them, oh, look, he really does want the job, because not everybody who interviews for that job wants that job. Some people will be doing it because they think, sounds all right, I need the practice for interview, so I'll go along. But telling the interviewer that you really want that job can make you memorable as well. And review how you did. Ask for feedback. So if you were unsuccessful, don't be afraid to contact them and ask for feedback and find out, you know, how could you do better next time? Because it is a work in progress, and even someone like me, you know, I'm always working on interview techniques and making sure that we're keeping up to date with the latest things. So make sure that you ask for feedback. So how can we help? So you can book a simulated interview or mock interview, and you can learn good techniques. We have a preparing for interviews guide, which is under applications and interviews on the website. You can see the picture just there, applications and interviews, and see interview tips from employers. There's some really good interview tips on there. Watch videos from video interviews. It's really good to get an idea of what a video interview is like, because it can be a bit strange, kind of like what I'm doing today, where I'm talking to a screen and I can't see anybody. I know you're there, but I'm not getting any feedback from anybody, so it can be a bit strange. So practicing video interviews can be very good. There's also lots of example questions to help you practice, and feedback from previous interviewees as well. All this is available on the Career Service website. And you, of course, you can come and see us. So we're in the atrium on the first floor in University Place. For those of you on North Campus, Barnes Wallis, you'll find your career consultants in Barnes Wallis. We're open all year round, even during the summer. We only close for a few days at Christmas. And you have access to our services for up to 2 years after you graduate. So even if you do get that great job when you graduate, you know, there's an opportunity, and let's say you don't like it or you want to move on within a year or a year and a half, you can always come back and have an appointment with us no matter where you are in the world. I have regular phone and Skype appointments with students all over the world, where we can chat about, you know, what you've done today, how we can help you with that next move. So do use the services that are available here for you. You can keep in touch with us on what's going on. Either pop into the atrium if you've got any questions. You can go on our career service website, or you can give us a ring to make an appointment, or email careers.info@manchesterac.uk with any of your careers queries. And there's various different ways that you can follow us. So we have Facebook groups, we have, as I said, our YouTube channel there, Manchester Careers, which is really good for all the past webinars we've done, so you'll find this recording on there in a few days. Our Weibo account, for those of you who are Chinese students who prefer to use Weibo. We have our we have 5 networks, online networks on LinkedIn that you can join. Pakistan, India, China, we have the international network on there. So there's lots that you can join, and the careers blog on our Twitter feed. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can stay in touch with us. So I'm going to end there. I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions. after this session. I know it was a lot of information to take in. As I said, it's a good idea after this session to go and look on our website and see what's available on there around interviews, do a bit more reading, a bit more research, and if you still have questions, you can always pop into the career service and speak to one of our team there in the atrium who can help you with those queries. So if you've got a question now though, you can type the question in the questions area and I'll just read the question out and then see if we can help you. If we don't get any questions, then I'll end the session for today. Okay, so no questions are coming through. So I'm going to end the session for today. Thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate you spending the time here today going through the webinar with me. I hope it's been useful. I hope you've learned some really good tips. I'm sorry my voice has been a bit weird. I've got a really bad cold at the moment, so I hope you've been able to hear me okay. But if you do have any questions, just pop into us at the atrium, as I said, and we'll be able to help you. So have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.